You are standing in your living room at 11:48 p.m. The lights are off. Not because you want them off, but because you are trying to pretend the room is calmer in the dark. Rain taps against the windows. Somewhere above the ceiling, water drips into a plastic bucket you placed there 3 hours ago. One drop, then another, then another. Your phone is in your hand. The banking app is open. Available balance, $418.26. Your mortgage payment is due in 4 days, and the repair estimate is sitting on the kitchen counter, written in cold, black ink. Your spouse is quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that says the conversation has already happened inside their head, and there are no good words left to say. Then your phone vibrates. It is your realtor. You already know what they are going to say before you answer. The buyer backed out. Inspection issue. Financing concern. Market uncertainty. Words that sound professional, but all mean the exact same thing. You are still stuck. Stuck in the house everyone congratulated you for buying. In the house your family called a blessing. In the house your friend said was the smartest financial move you could ever make. You look around the room. The furniture is nice. The walls are painted. From the outside, this is the very definition of success. From the inside, it feels like a cage with crown molding. Your spouse finally breaks the silence. What did this house really cost us? You do not answer, because the true answer is not on your mortgage statement. It is not in the Zillow estimate or the square footage. The answer is hidden in the years before this night. In the decisions that felt responsible, the social pressure that sounded like wisdom, and the dream you bought before you understood the actual price. To understand how you got here, you have to go back to the first day the idea entered your life. Not as a warning, but as a promise. Before you buy a house, you buy a story. It starts early. Maybe it comes from your parents, who view homeownership as the ultimate security. Maybe it comes from a coworker or a friend who confidently tells you renting is just throwing your money away. The message is always identical. A house means stability. A house means adulthood. A house means you are finally doing something real with your life. So you start looking. Not seriously at first. Just scrolling. Zillow at night in bed. Realtor. Calm during your lunch break. You look at homes you cannot afford, homes you almost can, and homes that make your current apartment feel smaller and more depressing every time you return to it. You begin to imagine. You picture the modern kitchen, the concrete driveway, the green backyard, and the quiet street. You imagine the feeling of pulling into your own garage after a long day at work. Nobody tells you that imagination is the very first down payment you make. You picture your family visiting for the holidays. You picture them being proud. You picture friends walking through the front door and saying, "Wow, you really made it." That specific sentence matters far more than you are willing to admit, because buying a house is rarely just about finding shelter. It is about identity. It is about proof. Proof that your hard work was worth something. Proof that you are not falling behind your peers. The American dream does not whisper. It follows you everywhere. It shows up at family dinners, appears in your social media feeds, and smiles through open houses saying, "This is what responsible people do." So when the lender finally calls and says you are approved, something shifts inside you. Approved. The word feels like permission. Not just from the bank, but from society. Suddenly, the maximum number they approve you for becomes the exact number you think you should spend. You do not stop to ask whether this massive debt fits your personal freedom. You only ask whether you can physically get it. And that is the first quiet mistake. Because being approved for a mortgage does not mean the house is safe for your future. It only means the bank believes you can carry the heavy weight long enough for them to collect their interest. You are not buying peace yet. You are buying a massive obligation. But right now, it feels like arrival. The most dangerous house is the one that makes you feel successful before you can actually afford the life inside it. Closing day is an emotional blur. You dress a little better than usual. You sit in a room with fluorescent lights and sign papers until your wrist gets physically tired. You smile and nod at complex legal documents you barely understand because everyone around the table acts like this 30-year commitment is completely normal. Interest, escrow, insurance, amortization, closing costs. Terms that will literally shape the next 3 decades of your life are spoken casually over complimentary pens. Then, someone slides the keys toward you. Small metal keys with massive emotional weight. You hold them like a trophy. You take the classic photo in front of the yard holding the big sold sign. Everyone is smiling because this is supposed to be one of the proudest days of your life. And for a brief moment, it truly is. You walk through the front door of your new home. The empty rooms echo. The walls are bare. The floor creaks in places you completely missed during the initial walkthrough. But none of that matters because it is officially yours. At least, that is what you tell yourself. The truth is much quieter. The house is not fully yours. The bank owns almost all of it. The county will tax it annually. The insurance company will constantly price its risks. And every single month, the mortgage payment will knock on your door like a landlord wearing a corporate suit still. The first few weeks feel incredible. You buy new furniture. You make endless trips to Home Depot. You suddenly discover that every single room requires something: new curtains, tools, a taller ladder, a lawnmower, a bigger dining table, because your old one looks completely wrong in this new space. Each purchase feels small compared to the total cost of the house. After signing your name for hundreds of thousands of dollars, a $1,000 appliance breakdown starts feeling perfectly reasonable. Your entire sense of financial scale breaks. You say, "We already spent this much. What is a little more?" And the house hears you. It starts asking for more. Not loudly, but politely. A minor repair here, a fresh paint job there, a higher utility bill, and a surprise property tax adjustment you were not emotionally prepared for. At first, nothing drastically changes. You still go to work, you pay the bills, and you smile when people ask how the new home is. But your money feels noticeably tighter. Your breathing feels a bit shorter. Slowly, the house that was supposed to represent absolute freedom begins taking away your daily flexibility. The mortgage is never the only payment. The first major repair does not feel like a total financial crisis. It is just annoying. Maybe it is the water heater, the HVAC unit, or a small roof leak the inspector mentioned as something to monitor. You pay it, you complain to your friends, and you move on. Then another cost appears. A plumbing issue, a broken garage door, a pest problem, or a dishwasher that dies exactly 2 months after you promised yourself you were completely done spending money. Home ownership does not attack you all at once. It bleeds your bank account slowly. And because each individual cut is explainable, you do not call it danger. You just call it life. That is how the trap survives. One perfectly reasonable expense at a time. You begin checking your banking app differently. Before the house, you checked it with normal, everyday stress. Now you check it with intense mathematical calculation. Mortgage, utilities, home insurance, groceries, car payments. Something in the budget has to shrink, and usually it is your savings account. Nobody else sees that decline. Your neighbors see the beautiful house. Your friends see the upgraded kitchen. Your family enjoys the spacious backyard. They do not see the emergency fund that completely stopped growing. They do not see the retirement contributions you lowered temporarily, or the credit card balance accumulating from repairs you are too embarrassed to mention. You are not poor, which is exactly why it is so confusing. You have a home, an income, and nice furniture. From the outside, you look perfectly stable. But inside, Your financial margin is completely disappearing, and margin is where human freedom lives. Without margin, every ordinary life problem becomes deeply personal. A broken appliance becomes a bitter marital argument. A delayed paycheck becomes an immediate threat. A single medical bill becomes a crisis. This is where you learn the massive difference between owning something and being owned by it. True ownership should give you total control, but the wrong house takes control of you. It tells you which stressful job you cannot afford to quit, which career risk you cannot take, and which personal dream must wait. The house becomes a beautiful form of pressure, and because it is beautiful, you defend it to anyone who asks. You tell yourself it is an investment. You tell yourself rent would be worse. But an investment that makes you financially fragile is not freedom. It is a polished cage. Something changes in the way the world views you when you become a homeowner. You sound more responsible, more established, more adult. The word homeowner carries real social weight. You feel it in conversations at family gatherings, and when someone younger mentions they are still renting, you feel a small, guilty wave of pride. The world has trained you to rank human life by visible milestones: degree, marriage, house, kids, promotion. Because of this, you protect the image at all costs. Even when the actual numbers feel incredibly tight. You host the dinners, you clean the yard, and you fix the things visitors can visually see before fixing the hidden things that actually matter. You learn the strange, exhausting performance of middle-class success. The house must look completely calm even when your finances are in total chaos. This is where the financial mistake turns into a deep, psychological trap. You are no longer just paying for physical shelter. You are paying to maintain an identity. The identity of someone who made it. And identities are incredibly expensive to maintain. Once people see you a certain way, you become terrified of disappointing the picture they have in their heads. You do not tell your parents the mortgage feels like a physical weight on your chest. You do not tell your friends you deeply regret buying at that high price. You do not tell your coworkers you are completely trapped in a toxic job because the house desperately needs your exact paycheck. You keep it all locked inside. Admitting the house is too much feels like publicly admitting you failed at adulthood, but you did not fail. You followed the exact script society handed you. You did what everyone told you was smart. You bought the asset, you stopped renting, and you planted deep roots. And somehow, that responsibility started feeling exactly like captivity. At night, you walk through the quiet rooms when everyone else is fast asleep. Everything looks completely fine, but your chest feels tight. You begin to wonder whether the real mistake was not just buying a house, but buying a life you have to constantly perform for an audience. A house does not need physical chains to control your movements. It uses monthly payments, interest rates, property taxes, and the intense fear of starting over. Imagine you get an incredible job opportunity in another state. It offers a better role, a brighter future, and higher pay. But then, you look at the house. You calculate the selling costs, moving expenses, market timing, and the repairs required before listing it on the market. You ask yourself, what if it does not sell? What if the new city is even more expensive? So, you choose to stay. You tell yourself it is the responsible, mature choice. But deep down, you know the house made the decision for you. Another year passes. Your daily commute gets worse. Your boss gets harder to tolerate, and your industry begins to shift. You think about taking a lower-paying job that offers true mental peace. But the mortgage does not care about your mental peace. It only demands the payment on the first of the month. So you keep the stressful job. You keep the anxiety. You keep the version of yourself that can afford the house, even if that version is slowly losing its mind. This is the hidden financial rule nobody mentions at the open house. The more fixed your life assets become, the more expensive personal change becomes. Flexibility has immense value. Mobility has value. Low monthly obligations have value. Cash and time have value. But these crucial things are entirely invisible. A house is highly visible, so people praise the visible asset and completely ignore the invisible freedom you traded to get it. You traded your options. You traded your ability to pivot quickly, to survive a bad economic season without panic, and to take a bold entrepreneurial risk while you were still young enough to recover from failure. This does not mean renting is always superior, or that buying a home is inherently wrong. The true mistake is believing that homeownership automatically equals wealth. Sometimes it does, but other times, ownership simply means your net worth is completely trapped in drywall while your daily life begs for basic breathing room. Wealth is not measured by how impressive your address sounds to others. True wealth is measured by how much control you still retain over your life when circumstances change. Years pass, and you continue holding on. You delay the major repairs and watch the real estate market daily with an anxious stomach. You start thinking seriously about selling, not because you want to leave, but because the house has become far too heavy to carry. The bills keep growing. Your retirement account is far behind where it should be, and the asset that once made you feel stable now feels like the sole reason you are paralyzed. So you call a realtor. They walk through your home with professional optimism, listing off expensive requirements, staging, fresh paint, minor updates, curb appeal. Every single sentence costs you thousands of dollars, but you desperately agree because selling feels like your only exit door. You clean, you declutter, and you list the property online. The photos look absolutely beautiful, far better than the house ever feels in real life. A buyer appears, an offer comes in, and for the first time in months, your chest loosens. You think, maybe this long season of pressure is finally over. Then the home inspection happens. The report comes back with frightening words: roof concerns, foundation questions, moisture issues. The buyer gets nervous. The required repair credits grow larger, and your hope quickly devolves into silent negotiation. And then, the rain comes. Steady, heavy, and unrelenting. The living room ceiling stain darkens, and the slow drip begins. One drop, then another, then another. You place the plastic bucket on the floor and stare at it. The house has completely stopped pretending. It is no longer a dream, a milestone, or proof of success. It is simply a massive bill with walls. That night, your phone rings. The realtor delivers the devastating news, and you find yourself right back in the opening scene. The buyer has walked away, and you are forced to face the brutal question you avoided for years. Did you actually buy the house? Or did the house buy you? You are back in the dark living room at 11:48 p.m. rain on the window, water dripping into the bucket, banking app open to $418.26. You stand there and finally let the raw truth enter the space. This house gave you beautiful memories, but it also systematically stole your financial margin. It gave you social status, but it took away your life's flexibility. It made you look completely stable while making your actual life incredibly fragile. The mistake was not buying property. The mistake was buying too much house for the specific version of freedom you actually wanted. The mistake was letting a bank's financial approval replace personal wisdom. Bad financial decisions are not always ugly. Sometimes they are full of genuine love. They have nurseries, backyards, Christmas lights, and rooms where your children took their very first steps. And yet, they can still be far too expensive. They can still cost you much more than mere money. Your spouse asks again, softer this time, "What did this house really cost us?" Now you finally know the answer. It cost you years of breathing room. It cost you investments delayed. Bold risks not taken, lost sleep, and the version of your life that could have been remarkably lighter. A house is not automatically freedom. A house is a tool, and any tool used at the wrong time, for the wrong price, and for the wrong reason can easily become a weapon used against your future. This does not mean every home buyer is wrong. Some buy wisely. They buy well below their financial limit. They keep abundant cash reserves. They fully understand the heavy cost of maintenance. And they treat the house strictly as a small part of a plan, not as proof of their human worth. For them, a house can truly be stability. But for others, a house becomes the most expensive possible way to impress people who will never see the depleted bank account afterward. The biggest mistake is buying the dream house before you fully understand what it will ruthlessly demand from your personal freedom. Once you understand that, you stop asking, "Can I afford this house?" And you finally start asking, "Can my future survive it?" If this story made you question the true cost of the life you are currently building, stay with this channel. Because in the next video, we are breaking down the quiet, counterintuitive money decisions that make you look perfectly ordinary today, but entirely free tomorrow. Click the video on your screen right now to learn how to build real wealth off the grid of social expectation.